You have felt it. That unsettling, creeping sensation that the years are moving faster than they should. When you were 5 years old, a single summer stretched out like an entire lifetime. Days felt endless, afternoons felt permanent, and time moved with the slow, generous weight of something infinite. But somewhere past 40 or 50, whole years began dissolving before you could properly hold them. The common explanation you hear everywhere is that this is simply a psychological illusion. People tell you that routine dulls your attention, that memory plays tricks, that the acceleration is not actually real, that explanation is lazy, incomplete, and frankly insulting to your intelligence. I have spent decades dissecting the fundamental structure of space and time. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that what you are experiencing is not a cognitive glitch. It is a direct, unavoidable interaction with the genuine physics of the universe. The clock on your wall is relentless and perfectly consistent. 1 second always lasts exactly 1 second, measured by the precise, unalterable oscillations of a cesium atom. That never changes. But here is the problem at the center of everything. You are not an atomic clock. You are a biological observer. And your perception of reality is governed entirely by the laws of physics and thermodynamics operating inside your own body. Your mind is a machine that collects physical data. When you are young, the universe hits your brain like an avalanche of completely new information that must be processed, categorized, and encoded, creating an enormous density of experience time. As you age, the physical architecture of your neural networks and the metabolic cost of recording memories changes in ways that are measurable, predictable, and irreversible. The universe is not accelerating. You are the one slowing down in relation to it. Today, I am going to dismantle your perception of reality from the ground up. I will show you precisely why the biological clock of your mind is losing the race against the cosmic arrow of time, and why no motivational speaker or weekend retreat will ever fix it. To understand this properly, you must first accept an uncomfortable fact. The universe is completely indifferent to how you feel about it. The physical flow of time advances with brutal neutrality. If you are sitting in your living room right now, time moves at its relentless pace. The ice in your glass melts and never reassembles into a solid cube. That is the thermodynamic arrow of time, mathematically perfect and utterly non-negotiable. 1 second is always 1 second. But you do not perceive time directly. You have no master clock embedded in your biology, no internal sensor reading atomic oscillations. What you call time is actually a physical, mechanical product generated by your brain, a biological construction assembled from the precise speed at which your nervous system processes incoming sensory information. And this is exactly where the physics of your biology collides head-on with the physics of the cosmos. Consider how you actually interact with the physical world. Light bounces off objects, enters your pupils, and strikes the back of your eye. That photon becomes an electrical signal traveling through flesh and nerve tissue to your visual cortex, where billions of neurons must fire, consume real metabolic energy, and construct a coherent image. This entire process has mass, electrical resistance, and a measurable duration. Your experience of being alive is not a magical continuous stream. It is a finite sequence of instantaneous frames that your brain stitches together rapidly to simulate uninterrupted motion. And the rate at which those frames are captured changes everything about how you experience the passage of time in ways far deeper and stranger than you have ever been told. When you were a small child, your brain was a high-performance engine burning energy at a rate that is genuinely staggering. Your neural networks were forging massive new connections at every waking moment. Every falling leaf, every metallic sound from the street, every texture beneath your bare feet was a critical new data point that had to be analyzed, classified, and stored. To accomplish this, the child's brain operates like an ultra-high-speed camera, capturing and processing thousands of biological frames for every single second of objective cosmic time. Think about what that means in practical terms. If you film a physical event with an extremely high-speed camera capturing thousands of images per second, and then replay that footage at normal speed, that 1 second of real time appears to last an enormous duration on screen. It stretches outward into something vast and full. That is precisely how a child experiences a summer afternoon. Their brain has packed a colossal volume of visual, tactile, and sensory information into a single rotation of the Earth. The sheer density of that recorded data causes subjective time to expand dramatically, making each day feel rich, heavy, and almost boundless. But thermodynamics is merciless, and it operates on biological systems just as ruthlessly as it operates on stars and galaxies. As you age, your physical components accumulate wear, your neural pathways mature and become coated in a substance called myelin, which makes signal transmission more efficient but also more rigid. Your brain's overall metabolic rate slows in measurable, documented ways. You no longer possess the biological energy nor the necessity to deeply process every minor detail of your environment. You have already seen 10,000 trees and heard 1,000 passing cars. Your brain, operating under the strict law of energy conservation, stops recording every frame. It begins predicting reality instead of genuinely observing it. The refresh rate of your experienced reality declines. You are no longer a high-speed camera. You have become a slow recorder capturing only a handful of frames per second. When light enters an older adult's eyes, the electrical signals now take fractional milliseconds longer to cross synaptic gaps. The calculation that follows is pure mathematics. If, within 1 physical second of cosmic time, your mature brain captures and stores a fraction of the information it recorded at age 5, your perception of that second shrinks proportionally. Looking backward, there are fewer frames on the reel of your memory. The reel runs out almost instantly. The universe did not accelerate. Your physical machinery simply can no longer keep pace with reality. But this is only the opening layer of the problem. The speed of your neurons explains the compression of individual moments, yet there is an even denser mystery in how you organize the larger structure of your past. To understand it, I need you to step back and examine your own existence, not as an emotional narrative, but as a purely mathematical structure. In physics, we have understood since Albert Einstein that your frame of reference is absolutely critical to measuring any phenomenon. The geometry of the universe depends entirely on who is doing the observing and from where they are standing. The same principle applies with perfect precision to the geometry of time within your own life. Imagine yourself at 5 years old. A single complete orbit of the Earth around the Sun represents exactly 20% of your total accumulated existence, 1/5 of everything your biological brain has ever registered. That year feels dense, weighty, and genuinely endless. It carries the subjective mass of a geological era. Now advance the clock to age 50. That identical astronomical journey represents a mere 2% of your life, and the shrinking has only just begun. The orbital mechanics have not changed in the slightest. Earth continues moving through the solar system at nearly 30 kilometers per second, indifferent to your age, your memories, or your sense of loss. But the denominator of your vital fraction has grown enormous. Your biological frame of reference has expanded so substantially that a single year dissolves into it, losing almost all relative weight. Mathematically, time is forced to feel shorter because you are measuring it against an immensely larger archive of accumulated experience. Yet, pure proportional mathematics alone cannot account for the full depth of this mystery. We must examine directly the physics of information storage and the energetic cost of routine. Your brain, extraordinary as it is, remains a purely physical organ governed by strict thermodynamic laws. It consumes a disproportionately large share of your total metabolic energy, and nature deeply resists the waste of that energy. When you encounter a genuinely novel experience visiting an unfamiliar city for the first time, for instance, your brain enters a state of maximum alert. It must construct entirely new neural networks from scratch. It records every strange sound, every unfamiliar architectural detail, every new geometric arrangement of streets and buildings. That physical and metabolic effort produces a rich, dense memory. Looking back on that first day in a foreign place, it feels remarkably long. But consider what happens when you drive the same route to work for the 100th time. Your brain, operating with thermodynamic ruthlessness, determines that recording familiar information again represents an absolute waste of finite energy. Rather than generating a detailed record of the journey, it applies extreme data compression. Physically, 40 minutes pass in your vehicle. When you arrive at your destination, your memory is functionally blank. You have advanced through time instantaneously in terms of recorded experience because your brain refused to encode anything new. Now apply this compression principle to the full span of adult life. You wake at the same hour, perform the same professional tasks, interact with the same people, travel the same routes. Routine is the direct annihilation of high-resolution memory. Week after week, your brain withholds the metabolic investment required to encode repetitive events. When December arrives and you search backward through your mental archive, you find it painfully sparse. There are very few novel reference points anchoring the months. Finding almost no data density, your mind reaches the logical conclusion that time must have passed in an instant. The physical universe, planets, stars, thermodynamic processes continued its relentless progression. But you, in your biological drive to conserve energy, stopped recording reality. Your brain is not simply forgetting. It is actively editing your experience of time without your awareness or consent. This editorial process operates continuously beneath the surface of consciousness, and its consequences accumulate quietly over decades. Each omitted memory is a moment of your existence that will never be recoverable. Each compressed week is a reduction in the total density of your lived time. The years that feel as though they vanished were not stolen by external forces. They were abandoned by your own nervous system, making perfectly rational thermodynamic decisions. Understanding this is not a reason for despair, it is the beginning of genuine clarity. Because once you understand the mechanism, you can at least face it with open eyes rather than baffled helplessness. But the story becomes considerably darker when you confront the paradox that this biological slowdown produces. Your brain is unambiguously processing less information per second as you age. And yet your subjective experience of cosmic time is not slower. It is faster, far faster. And that contradiction is not a confusion of language. It is a genuine physical puzzle with a precise and deeply unsettling solution. Here is the paradox that fractures even the sharpest intuitions. If your aging brain is recording fewer frames per second, basic logic suggests the external world should appear to move in slow motion the way a sluggish computer causes video to stutter and drag. Everything should feel heavier and more drawn out. Yet you experience the exact opposite. Your mental machinery is measurably slower, and still the years fly past with increasing speed. How is this physically possible? Look at your own hands right now. Move them in front of your face. You almost certainly believe you are seeing them in this precise instant, inhabiting the absolute present of the universe simultaneously with everything around you. You are profoundly mistaken. The present does not exist in your biological experience. Light must physically travel from the surface of your skin to the retinas of your eyes, a journey that consumes a fraction of a nanosecond. Then the universe demands a heavier toll. The chemical and electrical signal must propagate through the dense tissue of your optic nerves, and your brain requires approximately 80 milliseconds to assemble that raw signal into the coherent image your consciousness recognizes. You have never, not once in your entire life, perceived the actual present moment. Your awareness is a live transmission running on a constant physical delay. When you are young, that delay operates at peak biological efficiency, nearly synchronized with the thermodynamic tick of objective time. But your perception is also chemically anchored to something more specific, a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which functions as the physical pendulum of your internal biological clock. In a young brain, this pendulum swings with tremendous force, driven by abundant dopamine levels. The internal clock ticks rapidly. Each swift oscillation registers as a marker in your perception of passing time, creating that sensation of days filled with weight and substance. Then the second law of thermodynamics intervenes, as it always does. Every closed system drifts toward greater disorder and lower energy, and your body is no exception. As you age, your dopamine receptors do not merely weaken metaphorically, they die. Physical cellular death dictated by entropy, irreversible and mathematically inevitable. With fewer functional receptors and diminished dopamine availability, the pendulum of your biological clock loses its driving energy and swings more slowly. Your internal tick becomes heavy and widely spaced. This is the resolution of the paradox. When your internal clock runs slowly, the external universe requires far fewer of your biological ticks to complete a full day. The earth rotates, the sun rises and sets, and your mature brain has registered only a fraction of the chemical pulses it recorded during childhood. Because you are a prisoner of your own biology, measuring the passage of time exclusively through your internal oscillations, you conclude that the external day was brief. The universe did not accelerate by a single fraction. Your internal clock became severely compromised in the face of an unchanging cosmos. The mismatch between your slowing biological rhythm and the constant forward march of physical time creates the precise sensation of acceleration that haunts every adult who has ever watched a year evaporate without warning. This is also why the popular prescriptions for slowing the passage of time are fundamentally misleading. Traveling to new places and learning new skills can temporarily boost metabolic engagement, generating a brief period of denser memory formation. But these interventions treat a surface symptom, while the underlying structural degradation continues uninterrupted. The dopamine receptors that have already died will not regenerate because you booked an international flight. The clock pendulum that has already slowed will not swing faster because your calendar is filled with novelty. Something far more fundamental is deteriorating, and it connects directly to a law that governs not just your brain, but the entire observable universe. I warned you that this investigation would shatter your intuitions. Now I will take the final step and introduce the element that transforms a biological puzzle into a genuinely cosmic one. Until this point, we have been discussing your subjective experience as though the external physical time against which you measure yourself is a stable, universal, constant, shared equally by every observer in existence. That assumption is false. It has been demonstrably false since 1905, and confronting its implications for your personal experience of aging is among the most disorienting intellectual exercises available to a human mind. Isaac Newton, one of the most formidable intellects in human history, believed time was an absolute stage, infinite, independent, and perfectly uniform across the entire cosmos. A flawless machine within which events unfolded identically for every observer, regardless of their position or motion. Then Einstein arrived and demolished Newton's stage entirely. He forced the scientific community to accept something darker and far more structurally complex, that space and time are not separate, independent dimensions, but a single unified physical fabric spacetime that bends, stretches, and compresses depending on the conditions of each individual observer. Time is not a river flowing at a fixed rate for all. It is a malleable dimension, deformed by velocity and gravitation, different for every distinct frame of reference in the universe. Apply this directly to your aging life. According to special relativity, a traveler accelerating toward a significant fraction of light speed would experience genuine physical time dilation. The clocks aboard their vessel would tick more slowly relative to a stationary observer. Their cellular processes, neural signals, and atomic oscillations would all slow in a measurably real, non-metaphorical way. Upon returning to Earth, they would find that far more external time had elapsed than their biology recorded. This is not science fiction. It is experimentally confirmed physics, demonstrated with atomic clocks aboard the aircraft. Now consider what we have established about your maturing brain. As you age, your neural processing rate declines, your sensory refresh rate decreases, and your dopamine-driven biological clock slows substantially. Your frame of temporal reference becomes increasingly sparse. I propose that this neurological deterioration creates a functionally equivalent temporal mismatch to the one experienced by relativistic travelers, not through physical velocity across space, but through the dramatically reduced velocity of information processing within your own mind. The young child, processing millions of novel data points per second, inhabits a temporal frame where the cosmic clock advances in small, demanding increments. Every second extracts enormous cognitive labor. The mature adult, actively suppressing the encoding of 99% of environmental data to conserve thermodynamic energy, glides through time on a surface of compressed, low-resolution experience. You feel the universe accelerating because you are processing progressively less of that temporal dimension within your conscious experience. You have stretched your biological clock to the point of severe distortion, trading the overwhelming, high-definition density of youth's reality for a pixelated, low-resolution version of existence, simply to survive the cumulative weight of passing years. It is not time that races past you. It is you, like a traveler subjected to immense physical forces, who has structurally altered the rules by which your mind engages with the fabric of the universe. Your biology has become a relativistic trap. The mathematical structure of the cosmos continues its majestic, silent, perfect progression. Your mortal machinery is simply collapsing in the face of that perfection. And the most sobering part is that this collapse is not the end of the revelation. The deepest consequence of your entropic deterioration connects to something even more fundamental to the actual geometric shape of time itself, and to what that geometry reveals about the true nature of your accelerating experience. Modern physics, built on the framework of general relativity, presents a description of time that almost no one fully internalizes because the implications are too structurally alien to absorb casually. According to our best mathematical models of the cosmos, time is not a flowing river or a moving present moment sweeping forward through sequential instants. The physical universe is an immense static four-dimensional block. Within that block, the moment of your birth, your present moment absorbing these words, and the inevitable instant of your death all exist simultaneously, already inscribed in the cold, permanent geometry of space-time. There is no magical advancing frontier called now, moving through the cosmos. Everything that has happened and everything that will happen is already geometrically embedded in the structure of the universe. Given that framework, the question becomes urgent. If time is a frozen, immovable geometric structure, why do you feel it dragging you forward with increasing brutality as you age? The answer is the most chilling conclusion of this entire analysis. You are a biological passenger traveling through that geometric block, and your vehicle is a temporary mass of neurons in accelerating physical decay. Your consciousness does not illuminate the entire four-dimensional structure at once. It is a small focused beam of light, a biological lantern, illuminating only an infinitesimally thin slice of the block at any given moment. And as your internal entropy inevitably increases, the lens of that lantern cracks, accumulates fog, and progressively darkens. With diminishing metabolic energy and declining chemical density to sustain continuous observation of reality, your conscious lantern begins skipping frames out of strict thermodynamic necessity. You no longer glide smoothly through the four-dimensional block as you did in childhood. You begin sliding violently, lurching from one compressed memory cluster to another across ever-widening gaps of unrecorded existence. Your brain erases and omits the microscopic texture of daily life because maintaining the lantern at full power has become metabolically unaffordable. As you skip from one memory block to the next, each more distant than the last, your traversal of the universe's static structure transforms into a vertiginous free fall. The sensation of terrifying acceleration is the physical feeling of your grip on reality loosening. You are falling through the space-time block without biological brakes. The mathematical structure of the cosmos remains precisely as it has always been: majestic, silent, and geometrically perfect. It is your mortal machinery that is collapsing before that permanence. And this is the irreducible tragedy of the human condition, measured not in fragile emotions but in the rigorous, unsparing mathematics of thermodynamics and cosmic geometry. There is no escape from these laws. Pretending otherwise dishonors both your intelligence and the physical reality you inhabit. But I am not offering this analysis as a sentence. I am offering it as the most clarifying lens available to a conscious mind examining its own existence. Knowing that your metabolic resources are strictly finite and that your temporal resolution is compressing with acceleration should strip away every trivial distraction immediately. You cannot afford the irrational luxury of spending your remaining thermodynamic energy on empty routines, comfortable fictions, or consoling illusions. You are a biological creature assembled temporarily from dying stellar material, attempting to map an eternal cosmos using a brain that is physically oxidizing with every passing second. Do not wage war against the acceleration. You cannot defeat the fundamental laws of physics, and the attempt is a waste of the very energy you are trying to preserve. Instead, observe the relentless passage of your years with the clear-eyed fascination of a scientist witnessing the rarest phenomenon imaginable, a temporarily ordered pocket of the universe that developed precisely the biological consciousness required to observe its own dissolution. That is the true and final mathematics of time. If this changed the way you see your existence, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, leave a comment with your thoughts below, and subscribe to keep following this journey, because the universe still has far more uncomfortable truths left to reveal.